So to start off our 3.2 notes, first we'll do just a quick review. And these are things that we were talking about in the last couple of classes, but what does it mean for angles to be a linear pair? And I keep going over these because I know the vocab is tough for some people, right? It is for me. I mean, I was never good at remembering vocab. So we have a linear pair. That means they make up a line. Okay, so angle 1 and 2 are a linear pair. Now they do share a common side, okay? And that's what makes them a linear pair, is that they share a common side. So that's one type of angle. Then vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are ones that are across from each other. So like 3 and 6 are vertical angles. 4 and 5 are vertical angles. Okay, they're across from each other and they're congruent, by the way. And then the last was supplementary. Remember that supplementary means that they add up to 180. Okay, so like 115 plus 65 is 180. So those are three terms that we've talked about here. Okay, that what is a linear pair, what are vertical angles, what are supplementary angles. So before I move on, are there any questions about those? All right, so when you guys are doing your homework or, or working on anything, have a worksheet today, you can always look back in your notes for these vocab. All right, let's go down here then, because we're going to add some new terms today. Okay, the first one, and I've thrown this word out, but we haven't formalized it, are corresponding angles. In fact, I would just highlight corresponding angles. Angles that correspond are ones that are in the same spot. So for example, what I mean by that is this. We have a crisscross here, okay? And so in that crisscross, something like angle 6 is in the upper right corner of that crisscross. Well, if I take that crisscross and I slide it up to here, angle 6 corresponds to angle 2. Okay, they're in the same spot. Okay, angle 8, which is in the bottom right, angle 8 corresponds to angle 4. Okay, so if you could just kind of visualize taking these 4 angles and sliding them up, which one would land on which. That's what corresponding angles means. Okay, it means that they would land on top of each other when we slide that up. The next term, alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. The word alternate means like opposite. So I'm actually going to write that down here. So alternate kind of means opposite. And interior, of course, means inside. So alternate interior angles are on opposite sides and on the inside. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. They're on opposite sides and on the inside. So, for example, angle 3 and angle 6 are alternate interior angles. They're on opposite sides, okay? The 3 is on the left, the 6 is on the right, and they're on the inside, as opposed to like 1 and 2 would be on the outside, okay? So alternate interior means they're on opposite sides and on the inside. And you have other pairs like 4 and 6. Those are also alternate interior angles. They're on opposite sides and they're on the inside. Okay, looking down at the other picture, we could say that angle 5 and 4 are alternate interior angles. So for the next one, alternate exterior angles. Okay, alternate still, of course, means opposite, but exterior means outside. So those are on the opposites. And on the outside. Okay, angles that are on opposite, one on the left, one on the right, but on the outside would be like angle 1 and angle 8. Okay, they're on opposite sides, but they're on the outside. Like 1 is on the top and 8 is on the bottom. Okay, they're exterior as opposed to interior. So 1 and 8 would be alternate exterior. Angle 7 and 2 are alternate exterior. All right. And the last one is consecutive interior angles. And this one, the consecutive, it's like the opposite of opposite. It means the consecutive means they're on the same side. So consecutive means the same side. And interior, of course, means inside.
It can also mean like in a row, like 3 consecutive days, 3 days in a row.
That is correct, in a row. So in the top diagram, like angle 4 and angle 6 are considered consecutive interior because they're both on the same side, they're both on the right, and they're on the interior. Okay, so those are consecutive interior angles. So, keep that slide handy and you can refer back to that when you guys are working on stuff. Any questions on those? All right, well, let's go down to the next part and this problem is like what we've been doing. And that's the whole reason we talk about alternate interior, alternate exterior. You guys were able to find all those angles, but now I'm going to give them names so that we start speaking the same language, so to speak. If this angle 115 is given, its vertical angle is also 115 degrees. Okay, so its vertical angle is 115 degrees. Its linear pair, which would be angle 2, is 65 degrees. Exactly, very good, because they have to add up to 180, right? So 180 minus 115 is 65. Which means angle 3 is also 65. Okay, because 2 and 3 are vertical. Now, what number corresponds to this angle? What number over here corresponds to this guy? Which of these corresponds to this one? 6, yeah, very good. So 6, this and this correspond, so that angle is going to be 65 degrees. Which means 7 has to also be 65 degrees. And, we go from there. 8 would have to be 115 because it corresponds to this guy. 5 would have to be 115. It corresponds to that guy. And using the terms that we had before, angle 2 and angle 7 are alternate interior angles. And they are congruent, by the way. Angle 4 and angle 5 are alternate interior angles, and they are congruent. Angle 3 and angle 6 are alternate exterior, because they're on the outside. They are also congruent. Now, notice if they're on the same side, like 2 and 5, they're not congruent, but they are supplementary. Okay, so the consecutive interior angles are supplementary. All right, any questions on those? All right, so we just got one more thing to take it one step further here. So, we've done a bunch like this so far, but I want to go down here to this example because it's slightly different because we now have a variable. Okay, it's kind of like a warm-up problem. So first, I'm looking at this picture and we're given that this is 118 degrees. I know the lines are parallel because they have the markings on them. So if that angle is 118 and that's in the upper left corner, I know that this angle must also be 118 because this guy corresponds to that. I also know that angle 4, which is its vertical, is 118 degrees. But this one is not 118. Okay, because it's acute, of course, so it can't be 118, it has to be less than 90. But what we could do is say that the 118 plus the x plus 8, they have to add up to 180. So our equation would be 118 plus x plus 8 equals 180. So 118 plus x plus 8 equals 180. Because they make a straight line, they have to add up to 180. So 118 plus 8, I'll add those on the left side first. That's 126. So x plus 126 equals 180. And I subtract my 126 from both sides. X comes out to be 54 degrees. I'm going to move that work just off to the side here so it doesn't blend into the next picture. But we know that x is 54. Did I say degrees? I'm sorry, x is not in degrees. X is just a variable. It is 54, of course. But x is 54. And so the angle LMN, I have to plug 54 in for x. So 54 plus 8 would be 62 degrees. So the next step that we're taking here today is writing those equations. Now, sometimes those two angles equal each other, which is why I wrote this equation, set them equal to each other. I'm sorry, or equal 180. Sometimes they're supplementary, and sometimes they equal each other. So for example, in the next one, in problem 2, those two things will equal each other. So my equation then is going to be 6x minus 11 equals 37. Okay, they don't add up to 180, they equal each other. And that's going to be what you're going to have to be able to indicate. Do they add up to 180 or do they equal each other? Just think acute or obtuse. If they're both acute, they're going to add up, or I'm sorry, equal each other. now I'll add 11 to both sides. So 6x equals 48. And x then equals 8. Now to find the angle, we're going to plug that 8 back in for x. So I'm going to plug an 8 into here and do 6 times 8 minus 11. Okay, I'm plugging that 8 in for x right there. So then that's going to be 8 times 6 is 48 minus 11. So the angle is 37 degrees. So when you guys are working on your stuff, just be careful that sometimes the two angles add up to 180, and sometimes the two angles are equal to each other. You're going to have to be able to, figure out which is which based upon if they're acute or obtuse and what their position is. All right, any questions?